It is my pleasure to introduce Suzanne to everyone. Suzanne is going to be our final speaker before we have our screening of the Almost Ancestors short film. On the front lines of wolf restoration in the Western USA since 1988, Suzanne began in the role of university intern for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, USDA Forest Service, and the Nez Perce Tribe Central Idaho Interagency Wolf Recovery Steering Committee. There, she conducted reports of wolf sightings around the state and helped the search to document wolves in wild places of Idaho. After graduation, Suzanne served on the Central Idaho and Yellowstone wolf reintroduction teams in the mid-1990s, caring for wolves awaiting for transport in northern British Columbia, and releasing them in Central Idaho. From 1999 to 2019, she served as an Idaho-based wolf NGO conservationist, covering the Colorado Rockies to the Pacific Northwest and California. Often her work placed her in the heart of sociopolitical war over the return of the wolf, where she recognized that wolves would never escape human persecution until people found a way to live in peace with them. Suzanne founded the ongoing Wood River Wolf Project in 2008 to demonstrate that wolves can coexist with sheep operations on national forests when adequate non-lethal deterrents are consistently applied. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Suzanne, whenever you are ready.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the invitation to be here. And I'm just kind of adjusting my stuff because it was great to be able to listen to Julian cover some of the things that I wanted to speak with you about. I'm going to go into a greater depth on what's happening with Idaho, and I think probably one of the best things that I can do is also offer that there are some of the slides that are a bit difficult to watch or to see, and so if anyone is sensitive to that, to just adjust or minimize their screen or something like that. But I think we need to know what's happening on the ground here in Idaho, and it is the worst place in the world to be a wolf, and that's not an easy thing to say. We have been looking, at what's happening wolves throughout Europe and in other places around the world that they suffer a lot of persecution where they are. But Idaho's taken it to a new level, in fact, an old level of very brutal war against wolves and trying to eradicate the species. So let me see if I can share my screen now, if that will work, and then we'll jump in. If anyone has any questions, feel free to use the Q&A box. I'd love to be able to get to questions as well. One of the things that we have out that I'll put in the chat too is also a petition right now to Secretary Holland asking that she restore federal protections for wolves before they're eradicated from Idaho, which Idaho was set up as one of the subpopulations for wolves in the Northern Rockies. So there were three main subpopulations that created what they called the metapopulation of wolves. And that was Central Idaho, Yellowstone National Park region, and then northwestern Montana. Now, at its peak, Idaho had close to about 2,000 wolves in the state. And just to put that in comparison, so you can evaluate its importance to the region, at its peak, I think Yellowstone's had 200. So 10 times the amount of wolves in the Central Idaho wilderness and national forest lands area. Idaho hosts the largest integrated national forest and wilderness area in the lower 48 states. That's why it has such fantastic wolf habitat. And so that's part of the reason why we were bringing wolves back to Idaho, because we knew that the habitat itself was just really outstanding. It's why it was so important to the Northern Rockies recovery, because of that type of habitat, being able to sustain wolves at that level. And then also our wolves are the ones that moved to Oregon, that later then moved to California. So all the wolves that have come across through the Pacific Northwest, almost every one of them has come from Idaho. And so the Idaho wolves really played an important role in helping broaden that uh, that recovery of wolves throughout the region. So let me see if I
Suzanne,
can
I
get
hate
this
to
slide.
interrupt. I don't know if you have your slides up, but we're not seeing them on our end.
That's fine. Let me see if I can get it to come up on my end, and then hopefully on yours.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there we go. See if that makes a difference there.
Perfect. Thanks.
Okay, great. Um, so let's see here. I'm going to see if I can do it into a full view on for you all so that you're not just looking at all the other stuff, but um, so all the slides. There we go. Does that work? Look okay?
Yeah, that
Great.
looks great. Thanks.
Okay, wonderful. All right, my contact information, it'll come up again at the end, so don't feel like you need to rush if you want it. So the history of our region is pretty brutal with wolves. We had one of the areas of the country where wolves were completely wiped out, largely by the mid 1930s. It was an amazingly effective campaign. We didn't really wipe out any other species other than bison, the buffalo, as much as we did completely eradicate wolves from the western United States. And a lot of that at that time was due to poisoning. It was due to government funding. There was bounties on wolves, and tens of thousands of wolves were killed. And as Julian mentioned, it was because of people's concern. They wanted to own the range. The settlers here wanted to put cattle out there and not bison. And once the cattle were there, they didn't want to have any threats to the cattle. And the wolf was considered one of the chief threats and one of the easiest predators to get rid of. Hard to kill coyotes because they don't live typically often in family groups, at least large family groups, whereas the wolf bonds to the other members of its family is really what causes that vulnerability to people. But as you can see, we flip back a century with this picture here on the right. A lot of vigilante actions toward wolves, a lot of militia, and they've demonized wolves now to the point where they're not a normal hunted species anymore. It's about wiping them off the landscape. So in 2021, just catching up with the recent activities going on, Idaho Fish and Game, since wolves were delisted in our region in 2010, has been increasingly putting the pressure on wolves. So killing, allowing, first of all, 5 wolves to be killed per person, then 10, then an unlimited number. It started off with just a hunting season that was like 7 months long. Now it's year round, every month, every day, 365 days of the year throughout the wolf's range. And it is using tactics that we've never seen used with other species because they didn't have them a century ago. But one thing that they did have was the bounty, and they have brought that back here in Idaho, where you can get up to $2,500 even for pups in the den to kill them. And a lot of the state is spending $1.3 million this year just to kill wolves, just to kill wolves. And I want to put that into kind of a perspective. Although Julie and I were talking about, the people that want to protect livestock, it's not that the sky is falling. What we've seen in Idaho is that last year we had 30 cattle killed by wolves statewide out of 2.2 million cattle. Right? No, it's 1.2. Sorry, 1.2 million cattle. Somebody's going to correct me on that. I think it is 2.2. Anyway, millions of cattle here, lots and lots of sheep, and we lost 30 last year to wolves that we know of. Even if you take in account, 10 times that number, which would be higher than what any kind of science research study has indicated in terms of what we don't know about when they take livestock, it would be 300. It's still 0.001% of available cattle. It's not about the livestock. It's never been about the livestock. It is really about controlling, I think, the range and then the demonizing wolves to the point where they have such a strong belief that wolves are. I've had the head of the Foundation for Wildlife Management tell me that wolves, when they go into an area, that they kill everything, that the birds, the fish, nothing lives. So in their minds, they've created this massive demon, and they're bringing back all of these tactics that we've seen that led to the eradication of wolves over a century ago. So Idaho's plan, they've just updated it to give us another 2023 to 2028 plan, which would allow the state to get down to only 350 wolves in the state. But they have no way of actually measuring the population. They have a very flawed system on what they're trying to use right now to determine how many wolves are here. So it is unreliable, and it's more likely to indicate more wolves on the ground than what we actually have. So if they get down to only 350 in their numbers, we could well be closer to zero. And I think that is what the intention is. The original plan, which is still on the books, which is still the primary plan that Idaho follows, allows for removing all the wolves, calls for removing all the wolves by any means necessary. And despite the fact that elk harvest in our state is the second highest in our history, that livestock losses are minimal, 2.2 million, it's wrong before, and that, it just isn't, the sky isn't falling. And even the public here favors non-lethal solutions. We know we work with lots of ranchers who don't want to see all the wolves killed. We work with lots of hunters who don't want to see all the wolves killed. But there is a vocal minority of people that has been really growing, and thanks to our media hyping the stories about wolves, that it is just really gained traction here, and the hatred of wolves has grown. So this is a good lesson for us all in rewilding, who are supporting rewilding of species around the world, that if we're seeing this whole Northern Rockies wolf population threatened now because we have inadequate protection. There's no support for coexistence measures. Idaho spends $0 on that, and rural intolerance, fear, and demonization of species that they don't understand or don't want to understand. So these are some of the weapons that are being used on wolves right now. You can use semi-automatic weapons, I believe also different types of automatic weapons. There's trapping and snaring throughout the entire state, all throughout wolf range. You can use hunting dogs. There's people tracking with night visions, thermal vision. There's thousands of snares that are out there on the land. It's really not safe for us to take our dogs out onto public lands anymore without having the tools that we would need to save their lives if they were caught into a trap, because they're almost impossible to release your animals from that. And so it is not a necessary thing. We can coexist with wolves. We're actually proving that within the state of Idaho. I'm sitting in our project area right now in Blaine County, Idaho, where we've been running the Wood River Wolf Project for 16 years now. And we have 24,000 sheep that have been running in our project areas since May, June, early July, and they're leaving. Tomorrow is the Trailing the Sheep Festival, where we run 1,000 sheep through Main Street as they depart from their highlands grazing areas. Out of those 24,000 sheep, we've lost 2 this year to wolves. 2. And yet you look around the state in areas, this is just a sheep map, where they have much higher losses. In those areas, it's not a non-lethal program like ours. We've only lost 2 wolves to livestock issues in our 16-year history. They're killing entire packs outside of our areas, our project area, where it's the only place in the state in our project area as well that there's not trapping and snaring allowed. So our wolves have a greater chance of survival. And we're able to document the continuation of packs here. So having stable packs, having good non-lethal tools on the ground means we have fewer livestock losses. It's not about the livestock. If they really wanted to protect livestock, they would be following these methods. It's not about the livestock. It's about killing wolves. The Wood River Wolf Project, we are minimizing those tools by using different types of non-lethal tools and techniques. We're testing all kinds of new tools as they come on. We are the first ones in the North America to test fox lights and turbo flagging, and a lot of things are being used around the world right now to help mitigate wolf conflicts. potential wolf conflicts with livestock. This is some of the folks in our project area, some of the things that we do. We're, beyond the monitoring of wolves, we're also working with the sheep herders, providing them with equipment, making sure that we have good supplies for them, teach them how to use the equipment. We are also doing field monitoring of the wolves, and some of the students get to help us out with that, which is a great way of having the community involved. And, it's really, we took all of the data that we pulled together in the first 7 years of the project. That's on a website right now on the Journal of Mammalogy. You can pull it up. I'll put it in the chat for you. But you can see that, it really isn't rocket science. This is really using common sense solutions. We spend less money protecting these sheep than they do in the neighboring areas where they're killing wolves, to just kill wolves and still lose 10 times the amount of sheep that we lose in our project area. So that's my contact information again. Would be grateful for anyone that has questions. Happy to answer those. And let me see if there's anything else. Oh, in our website, I would love to talk to you about the International Wildlife Coexistence Network and all the wonderful work that people are doing around the world in order to coexist with wildlife. But unfortunately, I think we have a crisis on our hands here in Idaho, and it's going to affect the entire Northern Rockies wolf population. So if you're able to jump on and sign the petition and spread the word that these wolves, they really need our help. Thank you.